Thank you. That record button needs to be huge because I forget to do it every time unless I have somebody remind me. Okay, this is what an IEP looks like. And I know that your IEPs that you write may not be this exact form. This is the form that Keystone Learning created. That's the WebKids that is the WebKids IEP. School districts then had it tailor-made to what they wanted it to look like. So it's the same information, but it may be organized differently. But the guts of it are the same because it has to be by law. You know, they can always add parts to it, but there are certain things that have to be there. So you have to use kids, excuse me, legal names. And sometimes kids have nicknames and you don't even realize it's a nickname till you meet their parents and find out differently. And so you want to use their legal name, but every kid that enters the school system in Kansas has a kid's ID, and it's called the Kansas Identifier System. They used to use Social Security numbers, but then because Social Security numbers are tied to like maybe disability payments, Social Security, and all of that stuff, they quit using Social Security numbers. They're not on IEPs anymore at all. So it's the kid's ID number. And if you don't know your student's kid's ID number, like look on your previous IEPs, see if it's there somewhere. And sometimes it's not on the front page. It's like in the demographic information on stuff that doesn't even hardly show up. Your school secretary has it, your school psychologist has it, or your director of special ed will have it from previous IEPs. So find it because it needs to be on there. Because that number stays with that kiddo regardless of the school system they're in. It moves with them if they go to a different school. And that's how the state follows them all the way through the school system, up through if they age out at 21 or if they graduate earlier than that. Okay, on this line with the parents, let me show a different page. Can you see this page? Am I still sharing? Does it have red writing on it? Okay, this one's better to share. Where it says first parent, second parent, if the parents live in the same household, their names go on the same line. But it's not Mr. and Mrs. John Doe, it's John and Shirley Doe, or whatever. If they live in the same house. If they live separately, or if they're divorced or whatever, that's when you separate them and you fill out the information separately. If this parent has custody, their name goes first, and unless this person's rights have been severed, you still keep their name on there. And sometimes you have parents that they still have rights, but they have no contact with their kid and you don't know where they are. You still put their name there and you just write address unknown. But that's pretty rare, but it does happen. And when you type on these, let me show you, it's really goofy because I had to create it from a PDF. So, well, let me show what happens. If I start typing, it's going to screw up the whole, well, that's not a good one that's there. Anyway, it screws up the spacing and everything on it. So it's a whole lot better just to highlight and then type in the highlight. Otherwise, your spacing is going to go goofy. That's not going to make it wrong, and I'm not going to ding you on it. It's just, it gets frustrating for me when I was trying to do it, and it just didn't work out right. So that works easier. Okay. You're going to put the kiddo's birth date, and you do it in, like, if it's March, it's 03. 03, if it's March the 6th, it's 03, 06, and then a four number year. That's the format that it ought to be. And then the age that they were when you wrote this IEP. And the reason the age is on there, there are several reasons. You can look to see if a student is older than their peers, if they're a lot younger than their classmates. But there's some important ages with IEPs. When a student turns 14, there's some extra stuff you have to do if they turn 14 during the life of this IEP. So it's important to know how old they are. And some IEPs are nice enough they calculate it for you. When you put the birth date in, it shows up automatically, and I appreciate that a lot because it's just easier. It's one less hassle, but not. But because I created this one off of a form, it's not there. So you're gonna have to make it up when you're doing one for this one. You can put the grade level. Okay, on this CompuVal line, when you're writing the IEP for this practice one that you're going to do, you're going to leave it blank. But in real life, when students are very first identified and they very first get into special education, I'm going to quit sharing for just a second so I can see all of you. I go a whole lot by facial expressions. I can tell when I lose people if it's confusing by looking at their faces. So I want to see your face when I can. Okay. Anyway, when students are very first place for the very first time, they call it an initial evaluation. By law, every 3 years, they have to have a comprehensive evaluation. And a comprehensive evaluation is much more in-depth than what you do for an annual IEP, which is what we write every year. So the comprehensive evaluation is going to be within the last 3 years. The ones that you're writing for this class are annuals because we don't have the information for a comprehensive. We don't have school psychologists, test or psychometrists, depending on what resources are available in your district, do additional testing with kids, and all of that goes in. And you know, they're reaffirming that the disability still exists. Is what they're doing, and they have additional information they put in that we don't do it. You know, we assume that they're just going to stay in when we're writing IEPs. So that CompuVal is blank. Okay, I'll share again. And by the way, I forget to share. You guys have to tell me. I can't see that because I'll just keep talking and you'll be lost. Okay, so if the parents live together, I said you leave this section blank. If they don't live together, you fill it in for the second parent. If they have joint custody, it really doesn't matter which one goes first. If you know, as long as they're both written down there. As far as the initiation or the IEP meeting, that's the date that you're having the meeting and that people are going to sign. The initiation date might not be the same as the date of the IEP, but most of the time it is. Sometimes initiation dates are later, not ever earlier, but they're later than the meeting. If I'm trying to think of it, if a student is tested at like, I don't know, in April, and they're not going to place until the following school year, well, you're going to meet in April, but you're not going to start services till the following year. I mean, that happens sometimes. Sometimes services change, or you're going to add like speech and language next year, or you're going to add some other services. So the initiation date, it doesn't always the exact same date as the IEP meeting date. When, well, even before IDEA that you're going to learn about with Mrs. Firestein, before that law was enacted, there was a law called 94-142. It was public law. And they want kids to be educated in their neighborhood school whenever possible. So the neighborhood school is where they would go to school if they did not have a disability, if they did not need special services. Sometimes they attend a different building. And an example of that would be sometimes, and it's not as frequent as it used to be, but sometimes like you would have a student that was blind and you don't have the services or the resources, the people with the specialized instruction in your area, and parents would send their kids to live at School for the Blind in Kansas City. And so their attending building would be the Kansas City School for the Blind, but their neighborhood school might be Scott City Middle School if they lived in Scott City. So, but most of the time, those are going to be the same. Okay. Then participants in the IEP meeting. There are four, I'm going to stop sharing again for a minute. There are 4 people that are required to be at an IEP meeting. Legally, you cannot have a meeting without these 4 people present. Parents, general education teacher, special education teacher, and the local education authority, the LEA. For the purposes of this IEP, to make sure that you understand that those are the 4 people required, those are the only ones I want you to list on your IEP that you're going to practice on. In real life, you may have additional. If it's a 6th grade on up, kids tend to change classes for like reading and science and social studies and some of those things. So you might have multiple general education teachers. And so you type their name in, or they would write their name in. Their position would be like 6th grade social studies, and then the date. You know, so you might have a social studies, a science, a math, an English, PE, music, band, choir. I mean, you might have all kinds of people. For high school kids, you could have, what, 7 teachers, because there's usually 7 class periods during the school day. Plus, you might have a school counselor, because you're talking about careers and stuff and classes that they ought to take. So your school counselor might be invited, might be attending. So those are and anybody that works with the child as far as providing services, and not paras, but the professional level, like the speech and language therapist, motor specialist, adaptive PE, all of those people. And if you have outside agencies, like if a student is receiving services through counseling services, they would be invited to be there. But the 4 required are the ones that I want you to list. Okay. Now, sometimes administrators are out of town during the time that you have IEPs, or they have other meetings they have to attend. They can appoint somebody to be their LEA representative. And so if they do, this is how I would fill it in. Have them put the name, have them write their name, and then they would write, like sometimes our school counselor, I have them fill it in like that so that it shows that we have an LEA representative there. So does anybody have any idea why the LEA should be there? Okay, since nobody's going to volunteer.
Dr. Brooks?
Yep.
Would it potentially be to ensure that we are following IDEA law and following all the constructs that are required?
Theoretically, that would be nice, but typically local administrators know less about IDEA than we do. Because they know all of the other stuff, but they don't know the special ed law, okay? They know a lot of stuff, but they don't worry about that. They worry about us taking care of it. You know, it's because anything that's written in that IEP that is going to cost the district or the accommodation, they have to ensure that those are okay and will be carried out by their staff. Like if you're going to say, we're going to transport, for a high school kid, maybe we're going to transport this student to work, that's special transportation. The district has to pay for that transportation and furnish a vehicle, because you cannot transport kids in your own car. Your insurance will not cover you, and in some places that's grounds for being dismissed. Okay? Because your own insurance will not cover you if you're transporting a school kid in your car on school time. So they have to provide the vehicle, they have to provide the insurance and all of that. So that's a cost to the district. So that ensures by them signing off and sitting in on that meeting that they are going to do that, that they're going to help, they're going to take care of that for you. Okay? Makes sense? Yeah. And never, ever, ever blindside an administrator with coming up with something like that during the meeting without having forewarned them ahead of time. That's a quick way to get on the wrong side of them, and that's not someplace you want to be. Okay? It would be like walking into a meeting and somebody telling you, oh, by the way, you're going to do something that's totally not in your area of specialty or something you know nothing about. Number one, you're going to feel I would be embarrassed to be put on the spot in front of other people, but it's unprofessional, and we are professionals. Okay, so let's go back to the IEP. Okay, we're not going to worry about this section. You can read it, but basically what it says is that we will give parents a copy of their rights anytime they want them, but we have to offer them at least once a year. And parents' rights, what I do is I print one out, and then I offer it to every parent every time, and they always say, no, we've got hundreds of them. And it's like a book. I mean, you're killing trees when you give them copies of their rights. Their rights are numerous. And basically what their rights, in a nutshell, say, we can't do anything to, with, or for your child without your permission. That's the basic guts of it, is parents have final say. So I'm going to just scroll on through. I'm just going to go through this. So there's a section on health, vision, and hearing. And you need to mark yes or no on each one of these. You can't leave anything blank. Okay. On I'm going to stop for a second. Somebody in the last session asked me to explain what's the difference in high incidence and low incidence disabilities. You guys know? Hannah, you're shaking your head yes?
Well, is it like high incidence? Is that the higher functioning kids? Or am
No.
I completely off?
Well, no. Well, kind of, but sort of, but sort of not.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
is the,
Who started to talk? Mandy.
yes, sorry. Is the high incidence something that's going to continue with them, that's going to stay with them? It's something that you see all the time with them, not necessarily, not like it's I don't know how I'm trying to word it.
I know what you're trying to say. Sort of, but not exactly. Do you guys know about the bell-shaped curve? Remember the bell-shaped curve? Mm-hmm. High incidences are the ones in the middle that happen the most often. It's just how frequently it occurs. At one time, 80% of all kids who had IEPs were identified as learning disabilities. So it was the most frequent. The second highest was mild intellectual disability. Low incidence disabilities are things like being deaf or blind or severely multiply handicapped or disabled. They changed the wording, but same idea. Those are the low incidence things because the frequency of them happening is not as often. So it's just based on occurrence. Now, the low incidence disability kids are increasing the frequency of them because we have medical miracles. We have a lot of babies surviving birth that wouldn't have been. Hannah, interrupt. Don't just hold your hand up. Just go ahead and speak up.
Okay, so when it was explained to me, I think it was a little bit easier to understand. Like our low incidence kids would be those who have maybe a harder time being included in the gen ed classes, but they get included maybe in like a TA type of class, but they
what's TA?
Kind of like your seminar, your homeroom.
Okay.
Just where all the kids are kind of intermixed. And like the low incidence was the kids who are more medically fragile, like they might be in wheelchairs, walkers, they need more assistance. Their IQs were lower than those who maybe just struggled in like a reading or a math. They struggled in almost all of their classes.
That's partially correct, but the other part of it is kids that are deaf or blind can have extremely high intelligence. That doesn't necessarily, but they're still considered low incidence because deafness and blindness are low incidence. Okay. But their intelligence levels can be off the chart. They can be amazing.
Yeah, we only had like one death, so we didn't really see that a lot.
Yeah, but deafness is low incidence, yeah. But it doesn't have to do with IQ as much as it has to do with how the title of it, how often it occurs. Okay. And learning disability still is the highest, but when you're talking about medically fragile, yeah, we're having more medically fragile kids in our schools because they are medical miracles. They really are. That they're surviving birth and they're thriving, to get to school age. For before that didn't always happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what we have a lot of more in the classroom that I was in. Is just a lot of kids who survived things that they were never supposed to and can still come to school and can still participate.
Yeah, it's nice. Okay, so that's the definition. And so when we're talking about health, vision, and hearing, to go back to this, so a typical high incidence kid is not going to need health, vision, or hearing services. But by law, you have to check hearing and vision and health on a regular basis. So hearing is checked every 3 years. So if they were screened, and usually it's the school nurse that does it. So if a student had a hearing screening in June of 2019, when would they need to be rescreened, their follow-up date?
Would it be June of 2021?
I think that's
Or no,
only
that's only 2, isn't it? So
Yeah.
22.
Yep, so June of 22, right. And so the results can be as simple as saying past screenings. That's all you have to say. And then you put your follow-up date. And then vision is screened every 2 years. And I think about vision and I think, okay, when you were little, well, when I was little, it was recommended I got my eyes checked every 2 years because major changes only occurred about that often. But vision changes happen more frequently than hearing because hearing changes usually are like as a result, if they don't have hearing problems at birth, typically it's because of a high fever or, an illness or an injury that's going to cause a hearing loss later on. So that's why I think it's not screened quite as often. So vision screened every 2 years. And, again, you can put the actual results in there, like put an L for left eye and put the results and an R for right eye, or you can just put past screenings. And under here, you can write something, vision or hearing do not impact their
Anybody
education.
else just get her frozen?
I was going to say, I didn't know it was just my computer or what.
Oh, no. Let me stop sharing and see what happens. My internet connection is unstable. Nice. Am I still frozen?
No.
Okay,
I
gosh.
was like trying to look around at other people's like eyeballs to see if they're moving or not because I'm like,
I did the same thing.
Okay, am I still moving?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, can you still see the IEP?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I have to tell you, we had a thunderstorm one time in the middle of one of these. I lost electricity. Everything blipped out. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? It came back on about, I don't know, it was later, but anyway, it was too late for that. So I recorded myself and posted a recording of myself just going through the stuff. So I'll take care of it, whatever happens. Okay. So on the hearing and vision, you can write a statement in there that, vision does not negatively impact students' learning or student achievement. So many kids wear glasses or contacts. The student uses corrective lens or wears corrective lens daily. Sometimes kids don't like to wear their glasses, and you can write, student has glasses but chooses to not wear them. Whatever is accurate, you can put in there. On the medications, I'm going to stop sharing again for a minute. On the medication, there's all kinds of reasons kids take medications. Some kids take medications for seasonal allergies and it's just over the counter. But I put that on there because seasonal allergies and kids taking medications, if they're taking Benadryl, it can make them sleepy. If they're not taking it and they need it, sometimes they get so plugged up they can't hear. So it affects their hearing. And it's not selective hearing where they're ignoring you. They genuinely cannot hear you. But But we have lots of kids that are taking anxiety medications anymore. And you need to list the medication and the dosage and who prescribed it. Whether it was their general practitioner, Dr. So-and-so prescribed such and such for anxiety, so many milligrams per morning or per night or whatever. And I am amazed at how much medication our kids are taking. It's a lot. Kids take medication for ADHD. Kids take medication for ulcers anymore. Some of our kids are on, some of the low incidence kids are on, that have severe behavior and emotional problems, are taking psychotropic drugs, which is really scary. But that needs to be included. That's part of who they are and how they function. So you put that in there. Let me share again. This goes, and I really think this is a mistake, but anyway, because of their health problems, do they need adaptive physical education? Maybe because of asthma, they can't do all of the running that the other kids do at the same amount. And so that there's a statement that needs to be there, that due to asthma and breathing problems, the student cannot participate fully when, extended running is required. Because that covers that student in PE, because the student, if they go to PE and the teacher says, come on, you need to run, they go, I can't breathe. Well, it's in their IEP, so we're covered so that they can have that out if they need it. And then healthcare plans, the only time I think I've ever used healthcare plans myself with kids was I had kids who had seizures. And when they went into seizures, what's the protocol for handling that seizure? Get them on the floor, clear the classroom, call the parents. I had one little girl who had seizures so bad that the protocol was that we called the police and the ambulance and then notified the parents, because they had to take her to get an adrenaline shot or else her seizure wouldn't stop. Some kids are really, really tired after they have a seizure. A neurologist told me one time that when a student has, or not a student, but anybody has a grand mal seizure, with the whole body's involved in it, that it's the equivalent of running a marathon, is the stress that it puts on your body, and it makes you so tired. So having that rest period built in after the seizure is pretty, that they can lay down and rest, or that mom or dad will come and get them and take them home and let them rest. So you need to have those plans in place. Some of the low incidence kids that we have, we're now having feeding tubes with kids, and so that needs to be in there, and how you take care of that. Some of the kids with asthma have healthcare plans just because their asthma is so severe. Kids that are diabetic sometimes have healthcare plans because they need to be able to eat at certain times, or they need to come to a certain place in the building to check their blood sugars at certain times. So all of that stuff's included in healthcare plans. And then you're going to talk about the strengths, of all of these areas of health, vision, and hearing. What are their strengths? What are they good at? Well, maybe they're good at knowing when they need an inhaler. Maybe they're good at telling the teacher that they need to take a break for just a minute so they can catch the breath. Those kinds of things are what you would write there. And then the needs, those would be the special things that they need. The current performance, how are they handling it? And then, there's supposed to be a line here. Does it affect the way they are learning?
The strength doesn't have to just be about the vision and hearing. It can be about other things.
No, it's only vision and hearing. Every section of the IEP has the strengths, the needs, and the current performance and the impact. So, yeah, you have a place to address it on all the others. On the IEPs that you're going to do, these are you're going to leave blank until I tell you to do it. That's the last part of what we're going to do on the IEP. So those check boxes ignore for now. But this is all the parts that we're going through are the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance that's due the 23rd of June. So that's why we're going through this tonight. Okay. Okay, motor skills, based on their motor skills, is there anything special required? And when you're thinking about kids, always compare them to their peers or their classmates. When you see kids playing on the playground, little kids, can they run and jump and skip and do all the things that their peers are doing? And you can say they can, on the playground, they're participating in all the activities with their peers. Or in PE class, can they do all the activities? So are they just about like their peers? So that's when they would use their gross motor skills. The fine motor skills, you're going to see when their little kids are like using colors, color in a line, or using scissors to cut out circles and different things. Or how they write, their handwriting, that's a fine motor skill, or printing. Keyboarding, using an iPad or a Chromebook or a tablet or whatever technology you have, that keyboarding, those are all fine motor skills. So you can talk about that in there if they're exceptionally good at it. Do they have any needs in that area? I know a lot of people that need to improve their handwriting, but handwriting is not something we teach much anymore. And I just tell them they would probably do real well in medical school because they could write those prescriptions just as well as anybody. Nobody could read them. Yeah. So their current performance, their current performance, they're equal to their peers, or they're very similar to their peers. There's no outstanding needs, and it doesn't impact their curriculum. So on each of these, you need to make a statement, because otherwise it looks like you left it out, that you forgot. So you're going to put a sentence or a word or two or something beside each one of those. Any questions about that part? Am I going too fast? Okay. Okay, you're going to leave these blank again. There's these check boxes on each one of these areas. You're going to leave it blank still. Okay, social emotional. Social emotional. How do the kids get along with their peers? Can they work in groups? When they're picking peers to be on a team, are they the last one chosen? If they're the last one chosen, don't write that, but think about that. And how can you say that nicely so that it's not going to hurt mom and dad's feelings? Amy, I can see you. You're one of my pictures on my thing, so you're my guinea pig. How would you say that nicely?
Let's see. I'm thinking of a specific boy that I had in class this last year.
Good.
I would say that he was kind of a wanderer. This little boy was a wanderer. He didn't pay much attention to what was going on, like out on the playground.
Mm-hmm.
And it took us a while to figure out if he just didn't know how to relate to the other students,
Mm-hmm.
or if the other students had already decided that they didn't want to try to relate to him. Does that make sense?
Yep, very much.
And so after a few weeks, I watched him, and when I didn't have recess duty, I would watch him from the window, because it worked out that our classroom was right next to the playground. So we found out that he would do really good in class, in groups. People would want him to be on their team, if we had games or whatever. But there was something about going outside. And we found that he was the same way in PE class as well. He would do great in the classroom with the other students, and they wanted to include him. And he was very receptive to them. But he wanted to be on his own at recess and on the playground. So we finally had sat down and, you know, kind of talked to him about it, and he said it's too loud. He said it's too loud on the playground, and it's too loud in the gym. So we figured out that it was echoing to him in the gymnasium when he was trying to play and all of his friends were running around. So we had to work with him a lot in dealing with sounds and things that were going on around him. He wasn't on the spectrum. He wasn't autistic. He was just bothered by sounds.
So you could say, for a little boy like that, you could say, due to the sound intensity, he prefers to be by himself when there's a lot of commotion or something like that.
Yeah, and it's concerning too, because there were times like in PE that he wasn't picked for a team because he didn't want to play. He would go sit on the floor or sit in the bleachers.
Wait, and you can say there are times, you can say for some group activities he prefers to work by himself.
True. Okay.
And that's not a negative.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's not negative.
Okay.
If you talk about some of the positive things that they do, you know, that he during academics, he participates well in group activities, but during activities where there's a lot of commotion and loud noise, he prefers to be by himself.
Okay.
Or prefers not to participate. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So,
I don't know if I answered your question.
Yep, you did. You did.
I kind of rambled.
You're fine. Okay, so think about kiddo. Are they shy? You know, are they not accepted? Because there's a difference between being shy and being not accepted. It's okay to be shy, but it's not the best to be not accepted.
Okay.
And you can talk about their groups of friends. Like, do they have a small group of friends? Or do they have a large group of friends? Or do their groups of friends change depending on the activity? And in that case, if you're talking about him, it would change.
Okay.
And so are their needs, you know, their current performance, how are they doing? And does it affect their education?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so communication, the section on communication is talking about oral or verbal communication. It's not talking about written, it's talking about oral. And you want to know if they need services, like related services, which would be like speech and language therapy would be related services. Is it an ESL student, somebody that's limited English? Do they have special communication needs? Like for nonverbal kids, they might, have some kind of a nonverbal communication system like sign language, or do they use PECS, that picture exchange communication system with the pictures? Where they point to pictures or they show you the little card with the picture on it. So that would be something special if they needed it. For typical learning disabled kids and mild intellectual disability, communication is not impacted. They can make their wants and needs known. I'm going to scroll this up just a little bit so you can see this. Typical kids, learning disability and mild intellectual disability, and kids without special needs have what they call language registers. They have one level of talking that might include some cuss words and a lot of slang when they're talking to their friends and there's no adults around. They have another language register that when they're talking to their classmates in the school setting where it's a little bit more formal. And then they might use a third register when they're talking to superiors or adults, like you would use if you were talking to an employer or somebody. So kind of listen and see if they've got that, because being able to discriminate and use those different language registers, that's a pretty good skill. Don't you speak differently when you're talking to your friends than you do when you're talking like tonight on, Zoom? Yeah. So you've discriminated and you manage those skills.
If it doesn't apply, can you go back up to that?
Yeah.
It says if the student is deaf or hearing, if it doesn't apply, what do you do if you're not deaf? Oh, never mind. I misread that. Disregard.
Okay, you okay? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for general intelligence, this section changes from when you're doing an annual IEP to when it's a 3-year comp eval, like we were talking about earlier. When it's an annual IEP, first of all, you have to mark yes. Because if you don't mark yes for a high incidence kid, there is no reason to have an IEP, and they're not going to get services. They have to have cognitive needs in order to have a service. All right? So you're going to mark yes, and then you're going to tell a little bit about the services they're getting. A lot of times, this is where you'll see teachers will write in they're receiving 45 minutes of pull-out services daily to work on reading strategies or something like that. So you'll see your services listed there. You'll also see things like is a concrete learner. And it's a good thing to write, but I think this is true of everybody, or at least everybody I've ever met. If you tie new knowledge to prior learning, they understand it and can gain the skill quicker. Does that make sense? If you're talking about a dam in Southeast Asia, and you're talking about a dam, and the kids have seen the dam at Tuttle Creek, well, if you start talking about the dam at Tuttle Creek and how it's built and what it looks like, and then you talk about the one in Southeast Asia, it makes more sense to them. So if you tie their prior knowledge to new knowledge, it helps them improve and gain skills quicker. And I think everybody's like that. I haven't met anybody that's not. I don't think. Maybe one kid, but that's all. And he was in the gifted program above. Okay, so now you're going to get into the part when the school psychologist on a 3-year re-eval, school psychologist is going to add a whole lot of information because they're going to do additional testing. So they're going to add a lot more information there. And a lot of times I pick bits and pieces out of what they write and put it in here, but I don't ever copy and paste the whole thing. But I will take out little bits of it, like they're a concrete learner or they're an auditory learner or those kinds of things. So when you get to reading, because this is really the first of the academic areas, there's reading, math, and written language. When you get to reading, all of you are going to have a reading goal on the IEP that you're going to write. Did we finish at 9? No, 8, 9. We finish at 9:20, right? I was thinking, oh my gosh, we've got 15 minutes left, and we've got more than, okay, we're good. Okay, so what are their strengths? And when you think about a kiddo, you're going to look at their assessment that they took. Like maybe it's the Woodcock reading test or it's a curriculum-based measurement for reading rate or whatever. You're going to look at that and say it's a 7th grader. And in most of those subtest scores, maybe he scored at the 4th grade level, but one of them he scored at the 5th grade level. Well, that's a relative strength because that area is stronger than the other ones, even though it's still not up to grade level. And so you can use the term auditory comprehension and vocabulary is a relative strength. Even though it is still below grade level, it is his strongest reading, area in reading or something. So that the parents see that they still have areas where they're better than others. And on the parent concerns, I think this has been almost universal for every IP I've ever written. What do parents always want for their kids? They want them to be good readers and to be able to be good students and learn. I mean, but you're going to hear that from the parents during the meeting and add that in. When you're talking about current performance on reading, you need to have multiple measurements, multiple assessments. And it's not all stuff that you necessarily give, but it's scores that they have. Like, does your district give achievement tests? Like at the high school level, kids used to take the plan test. Sometimes they take the ACT, they take Ames Web, they take MAPS. So whatever scores are available in those CUME folders that they take, you're going to use those. You're going to include state assessment scores from 3rd grade through high school because they start taking state assessments as 3rd graders and they take them 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Sophomores take reading and math. Juniors take science and social studies. So you're going to have state assessment scores clear up through 11th grade. and you put those in, and you always put in the peer comparison. And I'll show you how to get the peer comparison off of state assessment scores next week. You're also going to include like a curriculum-based measurement for reading. And I don't know if you've done them, but maybe you've seen people that you've worked with where they pull the kids and they have them read out loud out of a passage for 1 minute. And they count how many words they read correctly out of how many, you know, and at what grade level. And then they write beside it, they say a typical 7th grader reads this many words per minute. So you have a peer comparison again. And then reading accuracy is another thing that's really easy and really quick to do, and you should do it with your kids. It takes 1 minute. And you open a science or a social studies book, or if they have an English literature book, you can do that. Just open it up, have them read for 1 minute, count the number of words they read correctly, divide it by the number of words they read total in that 1 minute. And that'll give you a reading accuracy. And the reason you want to check reading accuracy is when you give independent practice for kids to do, their reading accuracy for that needs to be at 90%. Otherwise, they can't read enough of it to do it correctly. Think about if the reading accuracy is 50%, and they go home and it's a limited English speaking student, and their parents only speak another language, and they can only read half of the words, how much are they going to accomplish out of that homework, other than frustration and decreased self-worth? So their independent practice, they need to be able to read it at 90% accuracy. And not to confuse it, but to muddy the waters a little bit, when we're talking about mastery of a skill, mastery of a skill is considered mastered when they can do it at 80% correct. So mastery of a skill is 80%, but independent mastery for reading and accuracy needs to be at 90%. So when you think about how does the reading impact their progress in general curriculum? Well, if you're not a very good reader, it affects science, it affects social studies, it affects reading or English. It can affect math as far as story problems. It can affect math as far as being able to read the directions. So how does it impact their education? It impacts it a lot. And they can't, you know, maybe they cannot function independently during certain classes. But almost all teachers, if you've been in classrooms, almost all teachers do so much lecturing and explaining that the main guts of what they want the kids to learn has been discussed orally, so the kids can pick it up if they're auditory learners, but they can't necessarily read it to do it independently. And that's where our job comes in.
Is this like the impact statement, or is that later in the IEP? Because I know we do an impact statement and a functional statement on our IEPs.
The impact statement is both. You can include both in that one statement. And that's one of those things that you guys have changed. You know, one of the modifications that they've made in their IEP, that the functional part that is not part of the requirement of the law, impact is. But yes, include both on yours, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to fill this part in later here, but not for this first part of the assignment, okay? Because you're going to keep working on the same IEP so you've turned it in 3 times. And so then on math, it's the same kind of things. You need multiple measures, you need peer comparisons, so you're going to use state assessments. You're going to talk about achievement tests. You're going to talk about how they're doing in the classroom, what skills they learned and mastered. Okay. And then you're going to have an impact statement. And then we'll do this part later. Written language is the same thing again. Okay. Um, have any of you seen anybody do a timed writing with kids? And these you will learn how to do later, but you give the kid a topic, and then you have them think for 1 minute, and you have their pencils down. And this is the hardest thing for me to do. I have to walk away from the kid because, as you can tell, I talk a lot. And I end up visiting with the kid if I'm not careful. So I have to walk away. I have to turn my back on them. When the timer goes off and say, okay, pick up your pencil and now you can start writing. And so they write for 3 minutes about the topic. And, you know, when they start writing, writing is not something that kids like to do. I mean, there's some kids that like to do creative writing, but the majority of them is like, yeah, they don't make me do this. Anyway, I tell them, if you can't remember think of anything else to write, you write the words, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And then if you can think of something else to add, you can add that to it. Because otherwise they get to that end of that first thought they had and they stop. And they still got 2 minutes and 45 seconds left to write. Well, if they have to keep writing the I don't know, pretty soon they'll add something else to it. So when you're counting the total words they wrote, you don't count the I don't know, but you can count the words before it and the words after it. And there's a way to score it and do all of that. And Dr. Lubin teaches that when she does the measurements class. So you'll learn it later. So just right now, just know that timed writings are good things to do for written language. Okay. And then for kids that are turning 14 during the lifetime of the IEP, so an IEP is good for 1 calendar year, 12 months exactly, 365 days. If I write an IEP on June the 10th, 2019, it is good until June the 9th, 2020. So you're short, I mean, it feels like you're short a day, but you have to do it by June the 9th. So if the student is going to turn 14 between June the 10th, 2019 and June the 9th, 2020, you have to do the transition section on an IEP. For little kids who are moving up from the 0 to 3 or the birth to 3 programs into the school programs, there's another transition that occurs there. And you guys will take the transition class that covers both of them later, but I just want you to know that you do have to do transitions. Okay? And I'm not going to go in, you don't need to fill out the transition section. I just want you to know about it. Okay, we're going to stop there on that part, and I'm going to show you. Oh, that's what it is. Shut. Well, I've got to find my IEP. I've opened and closed so many windows tonight that I've lost her. Okay. I'm going to show you a part of a case study, and we're going to go through and talk about some of the things that might be that you could maybe put into the IEP. And you know, IEPs, even though the special ed teacher is the one that fills in a lot of the stuff on it, it's still a team, an IEP team that includes the parents, the general education teacher, and the LEA at least, and the special educator. So multiple heads are always better than one as far as ideas and being creative about way to do things. And parents, if you can get them to speak up, they know their kids far better than we do. They've spent way more hours with them than we have. They know how their kids learn. They obviously have their child's best interest at heart. So encourage them to speak up during your meetings. Okay, I'm going to share this. Okay, I want you to read. Okay, so it's about Brandy, who's a 7th grade girl. And I'm going to have you read. Let's see if I can scroll just a little bit. Stop it outside of school and give me a thumbs up so I'll know that we're ready to scroll it down a little bit more. Just have one more paragraph. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and let's talk. When you read that case study, and that's just part of it, but from what you read, what are some of Brandy's strengths that you might include in the IEP?
She enjoys sports.
Yes, definitely.
She has really good social skills.
Yes.
Respectful and polite.
Okay, so let's go back for just a second. Brenda, you said she enjoys sports. So
Yes.
that could go on the motor section.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Taylor, you said,
She had really good social skills.
okay, that would go social emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mandy, you said something,
Is respectful and polite.
that would go under social skills too, the social emotional. Somebody else?
She's a hard worker.
Yep,
So-
and where would you put that? There's no place for hard worker. But you're gonna put it on there.
Yeah. Social emotional, maybe?
You could put it social, there's no wrong place to put it.
Yeah. I mean, it could go anywhere, I guess. If she realized she was not good at something, it said that she realized that she struggled in reading. So maybe the fact that she worked hard at trying to figure out her reading would be that her strength would be a hard worker in reading.
Yep, it would fit reading really well.
Yeah.
Somebody else? Or Brenda, go ahead.
Well, could you include it in that one portion you spoke about in the beginning of the IEP? There was a section where you could add some things. I forgot what it was called.
No, I think it would either need to go under social, emotional, or reading. I think one of those
Okay.
two would be better. Yeah. Ben, what did you see? Put you on the spot.
It said that her peers enjoyed her,
Uh-huh.
so they respected her too.
So where would you put that?
Probably in social emotional.
Tim, where would you put the part about her not wanting to leave the room? Oh, just a minute, sorry.
I couldn't. Could you repeat what you said? I didn't catch all of it.
I have to wait for my clock to quit chiming.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Sorry. Okay.
You're fine.
What about the part where she doesn't like to leave the classroom to go have test read to her? Where would you put that?
Is it social emotional?
Yes, because
I
it's
guess.
that's the self-concept part. Yeah, that's social emotional, yeah.
Okay.
And think about it, 7th grade girls. What's the most important thing to them on the face of the earth? Peer acceptance.
Peers.
And they're- yeah. And so that's a very typical reaction. They don't want to be different. So what could you do to help her? You know, how would you, because the teacher said she'd have done way better on the test if she'd had a red kit. Think about an accommodation or that maybe could be done for that. Did you think of anything?
I didn't hear that first part.
The part about the fact that she doesn't like to leave the classroom to go have a test read to her. Can you think of an accommodation?
Well, in the past, I've had some students that had anxiety about having a test read, and sometimes I would just tell the teacher to, she would tell a particular group, we're going to break up into 2 different halves, and some of you are going to stay here and some are going to leave, and we're going to break apart. And so different groups would come with me or stay, or she would just meet me privately and no one would see her leave. So there's different ways to work around it without her knowing that she's actually going to go have a test read. So
If like
Go ahead, Lauren.
letting kids like make it feel like it's their like they get to choose. Like we just tell them like if you want to you can, and then they kind of start to realize like they do better when they do leave the room. It would don't feel like it's like a forced thing. Like they get the choice, and once they've noticed that they like it and they are doing better, then they start to choose it over and over again. Like us making them like leave.
One of the accommodations I did for a kiddo like this that refused to leave the room, and it wasn't, it was a flat out refusal. It was almost a negative interaction. So we worked out an accommodation where she took the test in the classroom just like everybody else at the same time everybody else took it. Then when she came to the resource room, she retook it with having it read out loud to her. And then the teacher agreed to average the 2 scores.
Yep.
Because, the resource room wasn't always the next class right after that test. And there was a little bit of concern about, well, she could go look stuff up and get the answers or, so then averaging of the scores was a good thing. But it also gets with what you're saying, Megan, that once they see that they start doing better, they will use the accommodation more. But you can't force a kid to use an accommodation either. You can offer it, and you can, but if they don't, you need to document it that it was offered to cover yourself legally. That it was a student choice to not. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are some of the things you could put on there. What about the frustration thing, about her knowing that she's frustrated and shutting down? Hannah, what do you think about that? Turn your microphone on. There you go.
I would probably consider that her strength, that she knows when she's getting frustrated and to take her 5-minute break just because she knows that coping skill and can recognize that she needs to do that. I would maybe put that under social emotional because it's self-aware. She's aware of her.
Yeah, good. Very good. That's what I would put. Yeah. What about the organizational skills? Is that included in what you read? Yes. What about organizational skills? Would you write a goal for organizational skills? Mandy?
Well, I'm sitting here trying to think back to exactly what it said about organizational skills, but organizational skills for a 7th grader is huge. They need to be able to know what's due, when it's due, how to get everything in at the same time. So that could definitely be a goal. If you have a kiddo that is always leaving their homework in their locker, then you need to work on that skill of, okay, this is where our homework goes and this is where our homework is when we come back the next day. If they struggle to get work done, then you need to, work with them. Okay, how much time will you need to get this finished? And this is the time that we finish this, and this is the time we finish that. But those organizational skills will be huge. And they can be a strength or they can be a weakness, either way.
Okay, so with organizational skills, think about this. Think about the sections of the IEP. There's hearing, vision, and health. There's motor. There's oral communication. There's written language. There's reading. There's math. There's transition. There is nothing on there about organizational skills. Oh, social emotional. I forgot social emotional. There's nothing, or transition. There's nothing on there that says organization. But, the state of Kansas has reading standards for each grade level, right? Are you aware of those?
Mm-hmm.
About those? Okay. They also have math standards for each level. They have science and social studies. They have all those academics. Kansas also has the Kansas Social Emotional Character Development Standards, and included in those, it talks about organization. So you could put an organization goal under the social emotional section, but if you do, make sure it's very plain that it is not related to behaviors, because you don't want it to be misinterpreted as a student who's a behavior problem. make sure that it's very strongly worded, that it's based on the Kansas SECD standards, and that they include organizational skills. The other place that you could put it is on transition, because maybe if she's an older 7th grader and she's going to turn 7 or 14 during this IEP, then you could, organizational skills are what we all have to live and function and to maintain getting our class assignments done and your job and your family. I mean, you know, everybody has to have some organizational skills. So the other thing is, how would you teach it? Becky, you've been quiet.
I would have her come to my room.
Can you speak up a little bit or turn up your volume?
Sorry. I'd have her come to my room and then we would work through it together. I would have her come at the end of the day and show me what she has for homework and make sure she has everything ready, and that she's doing everything that needs to be done. And
that's called a checkout system. That's a good plan.
Mm-hmm. And then in the morning as well, I would probably touch base with her just to make sure she followed through on all of that. And I would also show her how to use the scheduler.
Okay, so check-in, check-out system, that's a good idea. Sometimes people will say, well, if we get a planner, what happens with kids that are unorganized is they lose their planners. Mm-hmm. I hate to tell you, but that's the reality of life.
Yep.
So 5th graders up that you know of, how many of them have cell phones? Nearly all of them. Those cell phones have calendars in them. You can color code events in calendars. So if it's due on Monday, it's whatever the assignment is written down in blue, and that's blue. Everything that's due on Monday is in blue. Everything due on Tuesdays is in green. And so you can color code and put them in their calendar. So you can put the due date, and you can put the color code in there. And kids never lose their cell phones. I mean, that's their blood, their lifeline. So, but think about it. How many of you guys put your grocery list in your cell phone? Or put your appointments in your cell phone? So are you teaching her a life skill? And is it a true functional life skill? Yeah. And in almost all classrooms anymore, kids can have their cell phones as long as they're on silent. So, and it doesn't take any noise to make your calendar work. Kids are using cell phones because they have built-in scientific calculators in them. And then a lot of teachers are having download free apps to use. So, you know, it's a true learning tool, but it's also a life skill learning tool. Okay? Okay, we've got 10 minutes left, and I want to get one more thing done. I am teaching 3 sections of this class, and I'm responsible for 2 adjuncts teaching other sections. And so sometimes I don't always get everything uploaded into all of the classes, and so I'm double checking on yours. Okay, am I sharing my Blackboard screen? Okay. Mm-hmm. At the bottom it says IEP group project. And it may be someplace else on yours. I mean, it may be someplace else in this line, because I've been moving them around. I've been trying to get them all the same. Anyway, your IEPs are going to be done in a group of, it's a large group, a group of 2. It's really a partnership. Because IEPs are done not solo, they're done with partners or in teams. So I'm going to pair you up right now, and then I will enroll you in these groups tomorrow. Okay? So I'm going to start at the, before I quit sharing my screen, I'm going to do one more thing real quick first, and then we'll do that. If you go to assignments, and then you go to quizzes and study guides. Is it still showing? And then it's at the bottom. I'm going to move it up just a second. Okay. Then you go to study guides for quizzes. I put a study guide in for each of the 5 quizzes. They're not wonderful, but I mean, I don't know. what I did was I went through the quizzes, and the important part, just a minute, let me share this again. And I'll show you one that I created. So you see the first one's on instructional practice. I just went through the topics that were talked about on the quiz questions. So as you're reading, if you go through those and make notes, then you should do better on the quiz. And I did that for all 5 of the quizzes. So, and you can take those whenever you want to. I don't care. They're open for you to take. But make sure you read the information first. On every assignment, and you need 26 out of 30 on the quizzes to have a bottom B. If you don't have 26, you should retake the test. All right? Because grad school only recognizes B's and above. And I want you all to make it through this class. But more than that, I want you to learn the information. Okay? So if you take a quiz and you get 24, you need to retake it. On the retake, if you get 30, I'm not going to give you 30 points. You're only going to get 26 because that's the bottom B. So you can resubmit any assignment to earn up to the bottom B. So even if, like on the IEP project, if you and your partner get an 84 and you want to try to go for that 1 extra point so that you'd have the 85%, I'll grade the rubric like starting from scratch, and I'll show you on the rubric the points that you would have gotten if that was your first submission, but your percentage point for your grade will only be the 85%, because that's all you can earn on a resubmission. I didn't apparently make that real clear last semester, and when I looked at my course evaluations, that was on there, and I thought, I need to make sure people completely understand that, because that's part of the AEP policy, okay? So on any resubmission, I'll score it up higher to show you how well you could have done if that was your first submission, but the actual grade entered would be the 85, or up to the 85, okay? Okay, so now, let's pair up. I want, I'm just gonna go through the order. Taylor, okay. Is anybody in here in the gifted program? Okay, so we're all, okay, so the IEPs you're going to do, Bethany is a 4th grader. Your choices are Bethany is a 4th grader and Brandon is a 9th grader. They're both high incidence disabilities. So Taylor, which one do you want to do? Turn on your mic, huh?
Bethany.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to go in order. Amy, you're my next one.
Will you give me those choices again?
4th grader or 9th grader?
4th grader.
Okay, I'm going to pair you with Taylor. Is that okay?
Hi, Taylor. I know her.
Oh, that works out well. Okay, Cynthia. 4th grader or 9th grader? Turn. Okay.
9.
Okay. Crystal. What grade? Okay. Hannah. I'm so glad other people do that.
Yeah.
4th grade or 9th grade?
The 4th grade.
Okay, I'm going to pair you with Crystal. Okay.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Is it Dayla or is it Dalla?
Dayla,
Dayla.
4th grader.
Morgan.
You already paired me with Aaron from my other class.
Thank you. I totally spaced that out. Okay. Becky.
Fourth grader.
I'm going to pair you with Dayla. Okay. Mandy.
4th grader, please.
I've got it. Thank you. Angela.
4th grade.
I'm going to pair you with Mandy.
Okay.
Tim.
4th grade.
Benjamin, Ben?
I'll try 9th grade.
Okay, which one?
9th grade.
Okay, I'm going to pair you with Cynthia. Okay?
Sounds good.
Brenda?
9th grade.
And Rakaya? Did I say that right?
Miss Rakaya in 9th grade, please.
Sorry. Okay, I'm going to pair you with Brenda. Tim, I know you're not, it doesn't show you with anybody, but we've got some people missing class yet tonight.
Okay.
So I'll pair you with them, okay?
I really will be. I'm willing to do either one too. Whatever.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
So that works. Yeah.
Okay, so tomorrow I'll send out a list and it'll have it's going to have everybody because it's going to be one long list. VC, VB, and the VE sections, or whatever sections I'm teaching. Anyway, they'll all be, and your pairs will be there. To look at emails, let me share. Oh, we still have a couple of minutes. Okay, to look at emails, go to Course Tools. Am I sharing my Blackboard, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Course Tools. And it's kind of in the middle on this side on mine, and it says send the email. And I don't know if you have to go through all this or not, but it should show up on Course Tools. And then select users. And then you can just scroll down until you find whoever was on yours. Like, I'm going to pick Tim, pick on him. Then you have to click the arrow in the middle to get his name to move over. And then you can just put IEP group project. And then you can do your contact information. Talk about how you're going to share to do your project. In the past, people have used Google Docs a lot. And when you download it, I know that sometimes the formatting gets a little wacky. Don't worry, I'm not worried about formatting, I'm worried about content. Okay? But I will not grade a PDF because I cannot make comments in it. Okay? So it's got to be a Word type document. We will meet again next Monday at, I think it's 6, and it'll be all 3 groups together. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about your IEPs that you're doing. But you should start working together before then. Don't wait until the last minute because too many things creep up and events happen. And Tim, if I end up without a partner for you, I will put you with another group, make a group of 3. Okay? Okay. Do you guys have any questions? I feel like it just goes too fast. Do you have any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Okay.
So basically, we are just going to work with a partner in trying to answer the questions regarding this student that we're assigned correctly. Like, will we submit one?
Yes.
IEP draft.
You'll submit one. So when you go to assign, let me share again, okay? So when you go to assignments, IEP assignment, and on this draft, don't get too hung up on because it's only worth 1 point, okay? Okay. And here it tells about the kiddos. And here's where you download them. And that example that I was using is right here. Okay. The rubric with the points are right there. Anyway, this is where you submit it. One person submits it and the grade goes, the 1 point goes to both people. If you submit it, you get a point. Okay, so it's not a big deal. It's more so that there's something to turn in And I can't get into the grading system without having at least 1 point assigned to it. Okay? So when you submit, one person submits out of your group, both of you will get the feedback and the grade. Okay?
Right, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have questions that I may or may not know the answer to? No. Okay, we are 1 minute past time. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
If you have any questions this week, you know how to get hold of me, right? Email me. I'll send out the list with the study groups tomorrow. And then I'll see you Monday, I guess, at 6, I think.
Okay.
Okay? In the meantime, stay safe. Have a little bit of fun. It is summertime. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Night.
Uh-huh.